Okay, looks like we're live on this, and welcome to my uh, bit of a conversation, uh, really for me, about getting to learn to live stream and getting to um, create some memories for my future self regarding my trip on the Pacific Crest Trail. Um, this trip um, started out because as a homeschool experience, like we sent the kids out on the Camino de Santiago in, I think it was 2018. And Naomi and Kai and Teo, they went and hiked from, somewhere in the Pyrenees and all the way to the Atlantic. And I think they did about 700 miles or something like that through Spain. And we've always found that being in nature is one of the best ways to create uh, a really strong body, um, a lot of fantastic experience, appreciation for beauty, depth of human personality. There's a lot of parental things that we wanted to. Hang on just a second. Honey, you need to turn your audio down. Your audio. Huh? Oh, that was coming from the from.
Coming from here, but because this hadn't paired.
Oh, okay.
I think that might have gotten it. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah. So our objective is to, work out some workout glitches, because I run a a, um, a corporation that has everything to do with wellness, increasing quality of life, healing a person's inner journey of discovery, all of this kind of like really like epically cool stuff. And I'm setting up to do a podcast that like actually matters for me in my life. This is for me, for maybe some friends and family, or but mostly for my future, and but for me to learn about how to do the podcasting thing. And so I just, Naomi and I are just working through some of the challenges of how to do this kind of stuff. So this is going to be, probably challenging and painful for you guys as we go through the learning process, but there's probably nobody online anyway. So like, who cares? Um, so I just kind of had left some things off at the Camino de Santiago, and why we would send our kids out on a long trip like that. I think they were 13 and 15 when they did that, and we have a dear friend who owns the North Fork Chai Company here in Newcastle, California, and I had taken him out on a prototype of a outdoor kind of like um, Vision Quest, Adventure Quest kind of a thing. And we were working out some of the logistics of that. And he was really upset with his life. And, when people are out in nature and they spend time together, they become more vulnerable, they become more raw, things become more authentic. It's really beautiful. And I just asked him, I'm like, well, what do you want to do? He's like 22, I'm like in my late 40s when this happened. And he's like, I want to go do the Pacific Crest Trail. And I had heard of it. I had done most of the John Muir Trail, which basically overlaps the Pacific Crest Trail. And I had done that in '94 with my mother as a graduation from college trip, back when backpacking gear sucked. I mean, it's good equipment, but really heavy. And so it makes it really hard. Nowadays, we've got such dope equipment that, man, you can go pretty freaking light and it's wonderful. It's a different activity when you have 15 or 20 pounds on your back rather than having 60 pounds on your back. It's a different activity. And this guy Josh, he's like, I want to go do the PCT. And so I'm like, oh, well, why don't you do it? Like, what's stopping you? You got a shit job that you don't like and whatever. This was before he started his coffee company. And he was like installing solar or something in summer, like rough. And so he uh, he took that info to heart, and I'm a inspirational kind of motivational dude. And so he took it to heart, and he respects me as a person and looks at me as a bit of a mentor. And I now look at him as a mentor. He's made a big difference for me also. That's how things are supposed to be, right? Like, we are each other's medicine. That's reality. And so Josh quit his job and stuff, and one of his buddies joined him, and he went and did the Pacific Crest Trail in 2017, 2018, one of those years. And while he was out on the trip, he said he's like, he had the insight that he wanted to own his own coffee company. Well, or his own coffee shop. Well, within a year of him getting home, he teamed up with his sister. I think his mother has quite a bit to do with it. And they've built out, one of the nicest coffee shops I've ever been to in my entire life. And it's 2 miles from here. Josh lives about a mile from me. His coffee shop is 2 miles from me. And they've done a spectacular job. And so when the kids got home from the Camino, and the trip was obviously just this epically big success, I uh, I started looking for things from 2018, late 2018, 2019. Okay, well, what's next? Well, in early 2020, the whole COVID thing was happening and everything, and the kids are now 15 and 17 years old. And so then we uh, just, put it out there of like, let's have the kids, let's do a trip on the Pacific Crest Trail. I didn't know how long it was. It turns out that it's like 2,500 miles or something like that. I thought it was like 1,600 or 1,800 miles long. It's not. And so when I approached my younger son with it, and I'm like, I think you're doing the PCT this year. And he's like, Dad, I'm not too sure I want to do that. And I'm like, I'm not sure you were born into the right family. Because as parents, we don't know how to um, parent screens. You're sitting here, you're looking at a screen, I'm looking at a screen, and these screens, they cause damage. They're not healthy for us. And they rob people of dopamine, and they make people more lethargic. There's an argument that it lowers IQ. I don't know if that piece of it's true, but as a parent who cares about their kids, not all parents do, um, we want to do what's best for our kids, and we want them to get to know themselves. And you're not going to go do the PCT and not get to know yourself. You're going to spend hundreds of hours inside of self-discovery, you know, and you can only distract yourself so much out on trail. And that's one of the reasons why when I set out this last year, it's like I really wanted to spend a lot of time alone. And I think that that's a really good thing to do. I think getting to know yourself and understanding the being that you are is of paramount importance, because you'll then act in alignment with the being that you are, and that'll deliver you to the life that you would love to have. And so it starts with you connecting with yourself and you understanding yourself and you walking through God's painting, day after day, after week, after month. Is a pretty good way to go pretty deep with yourself. And so, anyway, we set the kids out on the trail in 2020, and they had an epically good trip. The way that we structured it was that I started the trail with them. I hiked with them for 2 weeks. Then Naomi, she came out, she joined the trip at Highway 10, mile 200 approximately, walked with them for 2 weeks. Then I came back out and joined them. So Naomi and I flip flopped um, a bunch of the trail. So like I'd be on trail for 2 weeks, then off trail for 2 weeks, then she'd be on trail, I'd be, but we just kind of felt like they needed a parent um, with them. They're 15 and 17. They're super competent kids. They've spent, before that trip, they had spent hundreds of nights out under the stars, camping, hiking, kayaking, rafting, rock climbing, whatever. They're freaking rad and they're strong. Good kids. And, and, but we shut our chiropractic office down while we did the High Sierras. And uh, we um, we did that as a family, and as a person who has done a lot of rock climbing, a lot of backpacking, a lot of kayaking. I've paddled dozens, hundreds of days of class 5 whitewater in a kayak. My wife and I rafted and kayaked the Grand Canyon. She rafted, I kayaked the Grand Canyon at really high water levels in 2011. And, you know, I've had some epically good experiences. Naomi and I used to live in northern Patagonia. We set up the first chiropractic practice in the country of Chile. And so we were living in northern Patagonia, and we weren't there for a super long time. But, I've had some amazing experiences. But as a family, hiking, you're just walking, hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. I mean, how boring is walking, right? It was super clear to me it was the best trip I had ever done. And that was probably like day 14, day 15 of the High Sierras. And yeah, it's amazing. It was astounding to me that something so mellow could be so incredibly rewarding. And so that's what motivated me to take some time off. I've been in clinical practice for 25 years. I do a really unique thing. I'm really good at it. And we're changing a lot of lives. It's really beautiful. And I just wanted to take some time to myself. I knew I needed to go do it. I needed to go do that thing. And so I decided to go and do this PCT thing. And I didn't actually think I could do it. I knew physically, my God, my body is incredible. Um, Although I'm like always a little bit chubby, but which is a drag. Um, but so like mentally and emotionally, I didn't think I could do it. I knew that physically I would be able to do it. And here's my first lesson to silence my mobile phone. What a rookie mistake. And so I got myself out there because I knew I needed to do it. And I must be just a total egomaniac. Um, Even though it's like I generally don't seem to think super highly of myself, but I must be an egomaniac because um, I I just didn't think that I would really get much out of the PCT. I mean, I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I knew physically I could do it, but mentally and emotionally, I didn't think I could do it. I figured about mile 500, 600, I'd be like, I'm going home, and I'd make up some sort of an excuse to come home. Um, that didn't happen. I didn't have any mental, emotional issues at all. But what happened was that I found, boy, really interesting was that I it it changed me. Mm, I, I've been home for, oh, that's interesting. I've been home for, let's see here, October, November, December, January, February. I've been home for exactly the amount of time that I was out on trail. That's amazing. Is that accurate? Whatever. It's very close. And I still haven't been able to completely identify like how it's changed me, but it has made me like way more transparent. And I'm a pretty damn transparent person. And I um you know, my wheelhouse is personal growth, healing, self-discovery, transformation, becoming the human you would love to be. And I've been walking that walk for a long time. And and so it was surprising to me that I didn't have any problems out on trail, mentally and emotionally, and but it made a huge difference to me personally. And um, what I got clear about is that what I've put together through my professional life, it's epically good. And the amount of material that I've created is enormous. I think I've got 974 fully animated PowerPoint slides from teaching others and myself about this incredible healing journey, wellness experience thing. And I'm going to be kicking that off here in the next number of days. I'm just going to kind of go through this a bit just so I can get this off my chest because this matters to me. So I found myself out on the Pacific Crest Trail. I started April 7th of isn't Naomi, isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that I'm filming this 5 months after I finished, right? It's incredible how the universe lines things up. So I started my trip 10 months ago today, and I finished my trip 5 months ago today. And I had I my experience of the trip was that I absolutely crushed it. Generally my body, like I'm fit, like my heart, lungs, they all like are really good, but I'm always carrying extra weight on me. Um, and But anyway, I found myself out there April 7th, and I had this fortunate whatever. It's like my mother drove me and my wife, Naomi, down to the southern terminus to start this trip. And this is a picture of Lake Morena. We hiked from the southern terminus to Lake Morena the first day. It was too much for me. But if you happen to have noticed, we were able to slack pack, which means we didn't carry our backpacks. We didn't need to because my mother dropped us off at the terminus and she met us at Lake Morena. She was going to be down in LA for the first 3 weeks, uh, trail angeling us. The phrase trail angel means it's a person or a group of people that take care of people that are out on trail. There's a lot of them out there. They're completely fantastic. They're completely lovely. You can rely on these people. There's all kinds of Facebook groups, all these kinds of things to support people on their PCT through hike. My mother came down to support me for the first bit of time while I was out there. So I didn't have to carry a backpack. So I'm not going to carry a backpack. I was able to just carry my running pack with me. That was that Solomon pack that you saw me wearing in the first couple photos. And this is just me at camp, probably morning of day 2. And this is Naomi. That's her running pack on day 2. And this is us, her crossing the first big creek on day 2. And what a blessing to have my mom trail angel us, because we're going to do like 11 or 14 miles here on day 2, and then my mom's just going to pick us up and we're going back to Lake Morena to camp again. And it isn't for like 3 days before we even put on a backpack. Naomi and I have a ton of experience backpacking and doing all kinds of stuff in the wilderness. And so, we don't have any need. Everybody needs to hike their own hike. Some people feel like they need to stay on the PCT all the time. I certainly don't feel that way. If there is a dirt road that cuts off 15 miles of stuff that I don't want to walk, I'm going to take the dirt road. If there's a trail that makes the trip shorter, but maybe it's a little bit steeper, but I'm not missing anything epically good, then I'm going to take the shorter route. And some people are going to hate on that because I'm not some super purist or anything. And some people would say that I didn't hike the PCT. And the reality is everybody needs to hike their own hike. And certainly that's how I roll. And I love it if somebody's going to be like a super purist, whatever. Well, we started out just like with running packs, and not even on the day that we had permits for, because it just wasn't convenient. I think I had a permit for a week before I was supposed to start in late March. I started in April, and the permitting system is a wonderful thing that the PCTA is doing. I think it's an important thing, but at the same time, my life experience says that if you're gonna just follow all the rules that are given to you by, a nonprofit, well, just in life, if you're gonna follow all the rules, then prepare for an ordinary life. And so I'm not above breaking rules, and so we started on a different date, and I love it. I love it that I give myself that flexibility. And so anyway, here we are here on day 2. We still don't have our backpacks on, and the scenery down in Southern California is continuously epically good. I mean, the entire trip, it's super beautiful. I mean, the reality is that you're walking through God's painting. That's what you're doing. And it's so neat to just notice how, you know maybe you're not very fit when you start. Like I was fit when I started. um Naomi she's always really fit, and it's nice because her physiology matches her fitness, which is really wonderful. But even if you're like, you consider yourself to not be fit, this trip will make you fit. And what you just need, what people need to do, in my opinion, is just don't go too fast. Keep your pack absolutely as light as possible. maybe you need a little bit of comfort items, but keep your pack as light as possible. And if you can only do 4 or 5 miles a day, do 4 or 5 miles a day and start in March. You know, if you can start out and you can do 10 or 14 miles a day, and start in early April. And I started in early April because I was just itching to get out on trail, man. I was like 25 years into practice. My life is so freaking good. But at the same time, I was just like ready. I was stoked to be out there. And so I started earlier than I needed to be. And I knew that. I knew that if you just crush through the desert, you're going to enter the high Sierras too early. And then you're just going to deal with tons and tons of snow every day. There's no reason to do that. There's no reason to put yourself in the situation where you're having to cross rivers when the rivers are really high and take all these unnecessary risks, and make your days way harder. The high Sierras are the real deal. You're going to find an adventure in the high Sierras. And but I'm just such an advocate. I was on the phone with a buddy of mine, and he's like 70 pounds overweight. I was on the phone with him earlier today, and he's like, I would never want to do the PCT like you did. And I'm like, well, I think you should do it. And he's like, well, I kind of want to do it. And I'm like, did you just hear what you said? And so it was a really funny thing. And I'm like, oh, dude, how about this? How about we just go do the desert section and we'll just do 5 or 6 miles a day, you know? And you know, he's like starting to come around a little bit. So maybe in a few years, I'll get to go and spend a couple months walking through the desert with a buddy of mine. I hope that happens. It'd be really good for him. But you've got one body. And the reality is that your health is the most important thing to you. It is the central aspect of you, is your health and your physiology. And healthy people want a myriad of things. Unhealthy people, they want one thing. And so if you find yourself in the place where you want more health, you know, going and walking every day, the distance that you can walk, it's arguably the healthiest thing that you can do for yourself. Throw a backpack on, camp every night, hang out in nature. Arguably pretty healthy. So this is a picture of Naomi. This is kind of like a throwback of a photo that we took of Teo when we were walking through this area. Teo had picked up one of these, and he was 15 and running around like a monster with it and stuff. And so here's Naomi kind of reenacting that photo. Great. Look at how easy that is. See, I'm learning about how I can move stuff around. It's really great. Now that is a surprise that photograph is there, because that was out of place. So this is just Southern California desert. You're around 2,400 feet of elevation, give or take. This one obviously higher, probably around 4,000 feet of elevation. You'd be surprised. I know that the first time I got out on the PCT in 2020, I was shocked at how absolutely freezing the desert can be. Because my perception of a desert is rattlesnakes, lizards, cactus, and heat. And that exists. But what also exists is a real significant amount of altitude and coldness and wind. And so you need to be prepared for that stuff. And there's a couple legit mountains in the desert section of the PCT that are legitimately both years that I've done the desert section, the mountains, Mount San Jacinto and Mount Baden Powell, are real close to as difficult as anything in the high Sierras. You don't have the river crossings on San Jacinto or Baden Powell, but you get a real experience of temperatures and traveling in the snow with a backpack, using micro spikes, maybe using an ice axe, those kinds of things. And so I think that must have been San Jacinto. I don't know. That's Mount San Gregornio or something like that. That we're not north enough to be seeing Mount San Jacinto. Maybe it's Mount San Jacinto. That's one of the things about this trip that will probably frustrate some people. I could care less about it. Um, like I just don't know what all the mountains are, and I don't know the distances and these kinds of things, and so it's all kind of arbitrary. I was just kind of taking it one day at a time, and really paying attention to what my body could do and what my body wanted to do. So a lot of the landmarks I'll be wrong about. I wish. I mean, I appreciate that pictures don't do justice to 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 travel experience, whether it's whitewater, rock climbing, backpacking. This place was beautiful, and it just doesn't really show. This is day 3. We've now got our backpacks on. Naomi, um, she was with me for the first 2 weeks of my 5-month trip. This is the long flat section as you come down out of the hills to get to Scissors Crossing. Scissors Crossing is roughly at mile 70. And what you see Naomi in here, she's got these really flowy, like desert pants. So they're really thin, flowy pants, really wonderful to keep the sun off of you. The umbrella, it seems a little silly, but those umbrellas make probably experientially a 10-degree difference. They're super valuable. The kids kind of discovered that. The kids after their um, Camino de Santiago in 2018, they did the PCT in 2020, Mexico to Canada. Then they did Georgia to Maine on the Appalachian Trail in 22, and they're doing the Continental Divide Trail this year, Canada to Mexico. They're starting that in about 4 months. So this is a bar, the VFW. You know, we ran into a run-of-the-mill, good-hearted local and his dog in the local VFW. Naomi and I are sitting there getting beers. This is in the little town of Julian. My mother picked us up at Scissors Crossing, whisked us off to the little town of Julian, and took us out to an epically good uh, um, Italian dinner, and we stayed in a lovely hotel. I mean, very nice. Um, some of these pictures somehow are a little bit out of order. This is at like mile 1. Anyway, this is here again in Julian. Here we are drinking beers at a different uh, pub in Julian. And this is a picture of us before we're walking down into Scissors Crossing. These pictures must be out of order a little bit because we were using my phone and her phone kind of combined or something like that. That's the Ocotillo, Naomi. Oh, you're a little bit behind me, right? Okay, I think that's called an Ocotillo cactus. Really neat, especially when they're flowering. And so this is walking out of Julian, which you climb. You know, it's a climb. This is just a unique little cave right on the side of the trail. Here we are at mile 100. This would have been probably 2 days after we left Julian. And this is us walking down to there are these meadows before you get to Eagle Rock. There are these meadows that you cross that are just absolutely beautiful. Yeah, really long stretches of absolutely beautiful meadows with just huge, huge views. You know, that flower assembly, that spike of flowers is probably a foot wide and like 3 feet tall. This is Eagle Rock for obvious reasons. I love how easy it is to just move this stuff around. Naomi, is there anybody online? That's interesting.
I don't know if I'm a moderator on this channel. You might have done it only on the other channel. I don't.
Oh, okay. I'll have to. Okay, that's really good for us to learn. Hey, if you're online, if you're actually watching this online, will you just type your name into the chat real quick so that we can get a so that we can learn a little bit? Sorry that I'm making this so much about us, but I have no need to. I have no need to go fast with this. It's about learning.
Looks like I am a moderator. I just sent it to text.
Oh.
I just put chat in just
Oh.
for to test.
Okay.
And I have a little wrench next to it.
Okay, so you are a moderator.
But I don't know how to tell who's watching. It just says.
Yeah, I just asked them to type their name into the chat. Yeah, 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 yeah. So it's an sorry this is so long and drawn out, but I'm, huh?
Yeah. Oh, you talking to me?
I was talking to you. Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. I'm enjoying myself, so that's half the battle, right? Yeah. So this is Eagle Rock for obvious reasons. Yeah. The flowers in the desert are they're incredible, and but that's I'm going to say that so many times. It's incredible. It's like, how is it possible that there are millions of these flowers? You know, it's worth it. It's worth getting out there and going and doing the thing. Yeah, it's worth it. The hardest part of the PCT is getting to the starting line. Everything else, if you're just smart about it, you can do it. I mean, if you the mistakes that you can make there's quite a number of them, but the main ones are just going too fast and trying to keep up with other people. You don't there's no need to do that. Just you know it was really great to have Naomi out on trail for the first couple of weeks. Really nice to kind of get launched with your lover. That is an amazing tent that's made by Z-Packs. It weighs 21 ounces. You set it up with your trekking poles. It's done the PCT twice now. It's done the AT. It's done the Tahoe Rim Trail. I did that, I think, last year or the year before, 2 years ago, maybe 2023. It's also done the OT, the Washita Trail in Arkansas, in Oklahoma. Still waterproof. It's like an $800 tent, but it's incredible. It's a 3-person tent, and so I had this lavish frickin' mansion. I live in this ridiculously big house here, and then I had this ridiculously big house out on the trail. It was really pretty funny. And but what a lovely thing. Can't say enough about what the people over at Z-Packs are doing with gear. Same thing with Outdoor Vitals. The folks at Outdoor Vitals are phenomenal. They're making incredible gear. These are berries on a manzanita plant. I I knew that manzanita threw out berries, but I had never seen clusters of berries like this on manzanita. There's so many things that you see in nature that you really didn't know exist. Like, you know, it's incredible. This is not an uncommon setting for, you know, where you set up your tent or, you know, where you camp at night. It's just you're up on a little knoll, giant granite boulders, super beautiful. You know, it's five star, 5-star accommodations. Not every night. My God, not every night, but 3 out of 5 nights, 5-star accommodations, super epic views. You'll see so many throughout the slideshow of I'm taking a picture out of a tent or whatever it happens to be. I mean, the views continuously all the time are just epically good. So we had gotten ourselves down to Paradise Valley Cafe, which is uh, the next big resupply place because you have access to the little town of Idlewild. And we met up with these two people here. So this is Naomi and then we've got Hoot Owl is the guy in the brown hat, and Summit is the young lady that is kind of covered up there, and we'll see more photographs of them. But we teamed up to do San Jacinto together um, because San Jacinto is real. And having a team going into something that's real is better than going solo. And we had way more supplies than we needed. They were a little bit light on supplies, and so we were able to save a trip into town for them. And apparently, we were supposed to meet. These are two really great people. Both of them are employees or were employees at REI. Both of them are epic, you know, world-class hikers. Summit got her name. Uh, so trail names are an interesting thing. It's tradition on the Pacific Crest Trail that everybody adopts a trail name, and Summit earned her name because she has summited all of the highest peaks in every state. And so her name is Summit. I think that she might have to revisit Mount McKinley in Alaska. Why the other name of McKinley is escaping me right now is unfortunate. I think that she and her crew had to turn around very shy of the summit for safety reasons. I think a storm was coming in, but effectively she's done all 50 summits. What an accomplishment. Wonderful young lady, and she has a wonderful partner, Hoot Owl. The four of us, got along really well. So here we are in our first experience of snow. We're right at the tail end of our first week. And so this is up on like Apache Peak or something like that as we're getting up towards San Jacinto. This is the three of them crossing another freaking snowfield. This is we're a few hundred yards past where that French guy died You would never be able to tell how steep this is or anything, but a French person died in 2020, about a week before Kai and Teo and I traversed this section. So we were all a little bit nervous about it. It turned out to be completely no big deal. Hoot owl on a pretty interesting section. And so this is getting right close towards the top of Apache Peak. This is a picture down towards the this is the wall between California and Mexico. I don't understand why that is there, and so I'm learning more about double checking to make sure my shit's in order here. So I really like this picture of Hoot Owl. This is just really great, really strong young man. This is one of the best photographs from the trip. This is Hoot Owl and Summit's tent up on San Jacinto somewhere. I don't think I have any photographs of the myriad, hundreds of blowdown trees that we hiked over that day. That was a long day. We did a lot of miles. Is, a couple 50-year-olds, 55-year-olds keeping up with some 30-somethings, and they're strong hikers. Naomi and I are strong too, though, so it was fine. But I somehow caught this photograph. I love it. I love it. Love it. Yeah, this is the next day out wherever, still out on San Jacinto. We're coming up to some photographs that are, best of the trip for sure. And I don't think that that's my absolute favorite photograph from the trip, but it's in the top 10. This is us coming down off of, let's see here. This is in day 1 or 2 because I've got my running pack on. So this is in the first 3 days. So I don't know why that's out of that. I don't know why that's sitting there. This is us moving down and off of San Jacinto. That's San Jacinto in the background of Naomi right there. And this is the 4 of us at mile 200. So we're getting really close to where my mom picks us up. Okay, so between that last photo and this, my mom picked Naomi and I up, drove Naomi back to back home so that she could start running the office again. And this is me setting out on my own. And so I'm roughly 200 miles from the start of the PCT. So I'm about 200 miles in, and I'm starting the Mission Creek section of the PCT. This is the first time I'm alone on the PCT. And this is the first time I've seen this section. I had done that other section before. So it's really great. This is like, where my experience of the PCT seriously started to change. This is Mission Creek. You can't see Summit in and under that tree, but she's in there. These are probably some of my favorite flowers from the entire trip because they go from Mexico to Canada. They are these little tiny plants. They look like miniature ice plant. And let's say there's 50 blossoms in that photograph. There are places where all the ground is just covered in this, and they can run. They're white and kind of a reddish pink to violet. They run through that spectrum of color, and they're really prolific, and they're exceedingly beautiful. They're only like maybe an inch or two off the ground. It's a real beautiful covering. It's a strong plant. Oh, this is great. These are a couple guys. That's Grimy on the right hand side, and who I will refer to as Lieutenant on the left. They are going over the bridge over Deep Creek. And what had happened was that there's a place called Deep Creek Hot Springs that's basically generally full of drunk local hippies that are dirty. Hikers are dirty. Hikers are dirtier. But when I got there, it was like middle of a Saturday. The kids and Naomi, when they got to this section in 2020, they had a really, really great experience here. So I was really looking forward to it. I got there in the middle of the day, and there's like 35 or 40 people um, in the different hot springs and stuff. And it was the most ghetto derelict thing. I just couldn't deal. It was my vibe at all. And the energy was like dark. It was just not, it was not cool. And Grimy came walking up, and he's like, oh, hey man, we're gonna crush on out like this next 6 or 8 miles, and we're going to like the Josh house. And I'm like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's this bar in the desert that you can hitch to, and you can sleep in their dirt parking lot, but they've got beers and hamburgers. And I'm like, I'm with you. And so I grabbed my stuff and caught up to them. So I'm catching up to them. So this is Grimy and Lieutenant. I had only bumped into them 3 or 4 times. Both of them fantastic people. Lieutenant is a lieutenant in the army, military, whatever branch of the military from somewhere in Europe. Grimy is a dissatisfied web developer who made a pile of money and it was just like, I'm done with this. I'm getting a better life for myself. I don't know what to do, so I'm going to go walk the Pacific Crest Trail. But I think I look forward to connecting with him if I ever see him. I hope I connect with him again. I spent a lot of time with Grimy, and so this is me, closing in on them, and they're fast hikers. They're fast hikers, and so it took me a while to catch them. This is us at this spillway for this river system, and it was really neat because the echoes were just strange, unique, and neat and fun, you know. And so I don't have any pictures of the Josh house and stuff like that, but that was where I met Hollywood, Little Champ, Firecracker, Saunter, a bunch of people. Some of them I had met, one of them I had met in 2020. Um, and the other people, it was just one of these desert towns. People, tired hikers have all done 20 to 25 miles that day, and now they're getting to drink beer and eat hamburgers. And so that's a party, in some shabby little bar somewhere. And oh my God, hats off to these entrepreneurs out in the desert that are recognizing that there's a community of people that they can serve by just creating some sort of funky wash your clothes here thing. You can camp here, come buy our beer thing, whatever it happens to be. And people are making serious freaking cash doing it. And the hikers are just, my gosh, so grateful. We're so grateful for those kinds of services. And I think this is called Silverwood Lake, something like this. This is where I got my trail name, Guardian. And so let me see here. That would have been this lake here. It was like later that day was when I got my trail name, Guardian. Um, my job is to tell stories right now. So, um, you meet a lot of people. There's a lot of people out hiking by themselves. And there's a lot of women out hiking the trail by themselves. And so the way the circumstances worked out was that there was an unruly bear that had been hassling hikers in a campground in this lake, where all the hikers, basically, not all the hikers, a lot of the hikers stay at this lake, at this one particular campground. It's very convenient. And and it's a wonderful thing, because if you're out backpacking, there's a lot of things that I find really interesting. You get away from the comforts of home to go into the outdoors, and then you're in the outdoors, and the first thing that you start looking for is creature comforts. What backpackers would give for an outhouse? What backpackers would give for a picnic table to have dinner at or breakfast at? It's like, I mean, it's funny, you know, you give up your comforts to go out and do this thing. And then what are you doing? You're looking for comfort the whole time. Um, it's true. And some bears had been hassling people. And so I had run into Lucky, who smashed her face on a rock the previous year, opened up her head really bad, and was unconscious for a while. And somebody found her and whisked her off to the hospital. But it ended her trip at like mile 1850 in the year 2023. And so she got to the hospital, got herself all fixed up. So she was coming back to do that trail again. She's from Slovakia. Lovely lady. And we met, and we ended up in Big Bear together at some point. And she and I and this guy from England drank this huge bottle of tequila. It was awesome. We had such a great time. And so Lucky and two other women I had spent the last 2 or 3 days hiking with. We get into this area, and I wasn't hiking with them all the time. We all walk at different paces. All three of them were hiking by themselves. I was hiking by myself, but we would run into each other, get water together, whatever. Hey, good to see you again. See you later. Well, we ended up walking the last 4 or 5 miles into this town together. And what human beings do, human beings are community oriented animals. And they group up together when danger is around. And so we were obviously grouping up, and I could tell what was happening. It was that there were two guys, three women, four women, maybe myself, and I would definitely feel more comfortable um, with other people around if there's some frickin' bear that is causing all kinds of problems, keeping people up at night trying to get their food and stuff like that, right? Like, those are serious animals. And so I could tell what was going on, and so I'm pretty gentle about the way that I do things sometimes. And so I say something to the effect of, hey, maybe we could all just kind of hang out together or whatever, and invite them for us all to camp together and stuff. And so that all kind of starts taking shape, and so then we camp together. And what was interesting was that I have the tendency to just not even set up a tent unless my wife is with me. She prefers to sleep in a tent. I prefer to sleep out under the stars, and so I generally don't. I generally don't set up a tent. So when we get into camp, but most backpackers set up tents every night. And so we get into camp, and I'm not setting up a tent, and I kind of set myself up on the outskirts of where they were. And Lucky was she kind of misperceived things. She saw that I was setting up my tent somewhere where if a bear was going to walk through, I was going to be the first person that it dealt with. And And I was fine with having that position. I understood the situation. I saw how we had our camp set up and stuff like that, but I didn't set up a tent. And so she's just like, well, why did you set up there and you didn't set up a tent? And I'm like, well, I like sleeping out under the stars, and um, I like to be able to see what's going on. And she's like, that's so sweet. You're like our guardian. And so one of the other women piped up and said something like, that should be your trail name. Do you have a trail name? I'm like, no, I don't have a trail name. And so then they went through a whole ceremony and gave me the name Guardian, which is kind of interesting because it's like they made a little bit of a mistake. They didn't really realize that I wasn't setting up a tent to protect them. What they didn't know was that I carried a freaking handgun with me. I've got my Smith and Wesson 9mm shield in my pack. I not in my pack. I had it in my fanny pack right in front of me the entire time. Nobody knew that I had it, but I I grew up with guns. My stepfather was a Navy SEAL, and so I think it's really good to be in a position. I think my dad said it. He is also ex-military, and he said it's if you need a gun, you'd prefer to have a gun rather than to want a gun. And I'm like, yeah, I should have a gun. So I've got a concealed carry weapons license, and so I had a gun down in the desert. I sent it home at the beginning of the Sierras because there's nothing in the high Sierras that are there's no concern about the high Sierras. And and I'm quite a protective person. Is really wonderful because I got a trail name that like fits my personality really well. I am a very protective person. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I definitely take care of people. I'm definitely aware, and I'm proactive, and not the most timid in the crowd. So it was really great to get a really great trail name. And this was the location that happened at. So we're making our way to Cajon Pass is the next place. And so this is the sign to the McDonald's, which is literally, what is that, 4/10 of a mile off trail. And I'm the guy that, I'm married to a woman who's got a nutrition science degree, valedictorian of her high school. And we teach nutrition seminars. So how long has it been since I've been to McDonald's, right? Well, I'll tell you, I went to McDonald's twice while I was in Cajon Pass, and it was so good. It's like just sucking down Coke or Pepsi, whatever it is that they have, and eating Whoppers and chicken McNuggets, which it's all just so gross as I think about it, but it was so good, and it was not the grossest stuff I ate on trail. Like by the time you get into Washington, you're just eating anything that has a calorie in it. You just pig out on everything that you possibly can. So this would have been probably the next day or something like that. There's all these like sketchy outside of LA aqueducty like things and shabby stuff. Like there was more than one time when I was very grateful that I had a handgun with me. And I don't think very many people carry handguns on the PCT. I think you're silly to not have one. So this is up on Cajon Pass. This is where I made one of the most epic, my gosh, epic mistakes. Um, yeah, so we'll kind of cruise back here to Cajon Pass area. Um, it's like a 15-mile climb. It's hard to believe that it's that long. 10 miles. I don't know how far it is. But I didn't take enough water with me, and I ended up in this situation where I had no water. And so I was completely out. I was probably 8 miles from water. I was completely out, and I was camping. And is really great. You know, the reality is that the trail provides. If you don't think that the trail provides, if you think that the universe doesn't provide, if you don't think that there is something caretaking you in this world that's bigger than you, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And the PCT is a really beautiful way of explaining to people experientially that which is provides. Okay. And I've got a few stories. I'm only going to tell one right now. The other one is better by a fair distance. But the way that things roll out on the PCT is that the trail provides. That's a common thing. That's surprising to people. It's not surprising to me. I live by these principles. And I had ended up with no water. And I am at the end, I had set up a camp. I had done probably 20, 22 miles that day, 18 miles maybe, I don't know. Climbed a lot. The climb out of Cajon Pass is a real climb. And I've got no water. I don't have any way to make my dinner. Um, but, you know, I know that it's not some life or death situation. It's just like you just roughing it a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. And this these people came four-wheeling. These two Mexican dudes come four-wheeling up to the end of this dirt road. They stop their vehicle. One guy hops into the back and pulls out 2 liters, two 1 liter bottles of water. They might have even been 1.5 liters each. And he grabs one for himself and one for his partner in the passenger seat, throws one to him through the little sliding glass door between the cab and the bed. And, so of course I stand up. The gateway of opportunity opens up and it's like, well, take some action. Okay, so I step into that gateway, no problem. And I go, hey, could I buy one of those? Do you have any more? Could I buy one of those from you? And the guy's like, he of course doesn't think anything of it. And he's like, oh my God, you can have one. And I'm like, it would make a really big difference to me, you know, throws me a liter and a half of water, changes it's, that is common experience on the trail. The trail provides. This is up on Mount Baden-Powell. Uh, After a little bit of walking through Cajon Pass, you end up, everybody kind of rallied at the bottom of Baden-Powell. Baden-Powell's the next significant mountain in the desert. Like there are serious mountains in the desert. I think this is 9 or 10,000 feet, whatever, like seriously lower than the peaks in the High Sierra, but legit mountaineering skills, that you kind of need. And so we all woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning. There were about 15 of us to take off and climb up Mount Baden-Powell. This is a little bit later in the day. I hope I have some pictures. I don't understand. I'm really bummed about how some of these are out of order. So this is the top of Baden-Powell. This is Puma and Pusher. They are a couple from the East Coast. They were out doing the Pacific Crest Trail. Neither one had ever been in the snow before. The three of us hung out together in the group of 15. Everybody except for the three of us left around 3:30. We left around 3:45. And we got our headlamps on. You can see how Pusher still has his headlamp on. He hasn't taken it off yet. Neither of them had ever been in the snow together, so the three of us, I recognized that they had never been in the snow together, snow before. I've got a lot of backcountry snow experience, and so I hung with them. Being safe is the way to go. You're gonna put yourself out there on the edge. You're gonna go score yourself a legit. adventure, doing it safely is the right call. Um, so that's my style. I recognize this in them, so I hung with them, and I hope I have some photographs. So this is just me up on the top, and if you haven't been in, real mountains with snow and steep slopes before, you're definitely going to want to show up prepared. You're going to want microspikes and ice axes if there's a lot of snow on the ground, and more importantly, you're going to want to know how to use those things. Um, so this was one of my first really good views of Baden Powell, and myself and a fair number of people all woke up really early in the morning to set out to get up this beast. And I had teamed up with a couple hikers that you'll see here. Really sweet couple from the East Coast. They weren't. They didn't spend a lot of time in the snow previous to this. These two people are frickin' strong. I really hope that, and so their names are Pusher and Puma, and we were kind of the last ones to get out of camp. And this is somewhere right around 4:15 in the morning. And what an incredible experience it is to hike in reasonably adverse conditions in the dark. It's what a wonderful thing. It's not some super treacherous, gnarly thing. It's, you're still just walking. Um, but I think that mountain from where we started was it was a few thousand feet up, so it was certainly an effort. And Pusher and Puma, I don't know their real names. There's so many people on trail that I never knew their real name. We just everybody just called each other our trail names, which is a silly thing that the community does, but I had plenty of time to reflect on trail names, and they run, uh, from the ridiculous, like this one girl, like Dookie Foot, because she apparently, went to the bathroom on her foot accidentally, and her trail family kind of like noticed that she had done that before she had done that, and all the way to, pretty cool names, and everywhere in between. And a lot of them are really, really descriptive of the human being. And so, anyway, these two folk, Pusher and Puma, I hooked up with them for the hike up Baden Powell. We were a really nice, solid team together. They're such strong hikers, even though they maybe hadn't done something like that really very much. They're solid, and I'm a good person to hang out with if conditions are a little bit adverse and you're a little bit above your head. But I'm a really super safety conscious in the outdoors. And so that was the sunrise, and so this is Pusher and Puma, and just this is like we're probably like 4 hours into our hike up when this photo was taken, and this is steep terrain. This is greater than 40 degrees, 45 degrees of a slope. It's the kind of 10, 15 steps, huffing and puffing and stopping. So it's pretty slow going, but beautiful. All right, this must be Puma getting to the top. Pusher's back there. We got the desert behind us. I always giggle at myself of like how serious I look in all of my photographs when I'm taking a selfie, because I literally don't take selfies. And so I was like having to learn how to do it. So I'm like using a mobile phone in a way that I don't use a mobile phone, and I'm taking selfies because I want a little bit of a record of what it is that I'm doing. And so um, I made some Facebook posts with me and some selfies, and I'm always looking so serious. And I would get comments of like people like my buddy Brian from high school. I haven't seen him since high school. He's like, it doesn't look like you're having a very good time. It's like, ah, well, whatever. He wasn't hating on me. He was just stating the obvious. So I love this photo. Great, great photo of the two of them. They through hiked the AT a year or 3 years, whatever it was, before they came and did this. And good, good, good folk. Here I am on the top of Baden Powell. And then this must be us descending it. Like this view right here, where you've got, like seriously dead trees, and you've got just an absolute ocean of clouds. That is a very common viewpoint, surprisingly, because it's so spectacular. It's such a spectacular view. And so that happens not every day, but, 1 out of 10 days. All right, that's mile 400. And the shoes that I'm wearing are Topo Mountain Racer 3s. I would highly recommend people to take a look at them if they fit your foot okay and whatever. At least check them out. I had a couple hundred miles on these when I started the trail, and I got all the way to mile 700 with them. So I had 900 miles on them by the time I put them in the trash, and they looked really good, but they were crushed out. And a lot of times people were getting 300, 400 miles out of a pair of shoes. But it seems like the Topo Mountain Racer 3s, you get a lot of mileage out of them. Other models of Topos don't seem to hold up that well, but these shoes are bomber. This is just the general dinner on trail. This is at some random bar in the desert that has figured out that they can serve PCT hikers, and PCT hikers want stacked, really good hamburgers, as many calories as can be put on a plate, and beer. And that was definitely on the menu. So this was definitely one of the better dinners that I had on trail. This is a bar in the deserts. I really wish I could remember the name of this place, but they allowed you to sleep out in the back of their place. It was another one of them I was talking about, one of these bars that allowed you to sleep out in their backyard or whatever it happened to be. This one had grass and a shower, and grass that you sleep on, and a shower and a way to wash your clothes. I mean, they're just buckets and a hose and some, laundry detergent, but what a wonderful thing. You're certainly grateful for that if you've been walking for, 100 miles or whatever it happens to be, and then all of a sudden you can wash your clothes. It's a beautiful thing. And then you just line dry them and it's all good. But very typical, really great hamburger with a couple of huge onion rings and way more than one beer for sure. And it's very standard viewpoint of LA. You're east of LA a bit and stuff, but you're heading directly towards LA. And these things always, I found them to be really both really interesting and unique and fascinating. I love street art, um, and they're sketchy. They feel sketchy. When you're up in the high mountains, that doesn't feel sketchy at all. That's just, there's nobody out there. Criminals are not willing to walk up 4,000 or 5,000 feet of elevation to do crime. That's not what's going to happen. I'm stepping into this area right here called Vasquez Rocks. I'm on my way into the little space of Agua Dulce. Vasquez Rocks is This is where some Planet of the Apes and some Star Trek stuff was filmed, just because it looks pretty otherworldly. Really, really beautiful, um, really beautiful evening. My buddy Grimy, who I was talking about, he and I were going to meet at this Mexican restaurant later this afternoon. We only had 10 miles to go from wherever that other bar was to the next bar. And the trail through the desert it's like that a little bit. It's like maybe once or twice there's two or three places where you only have to go 10 or 30 miles, from one place to the next, where you're kind of bar hopping while you're backpacking. It's unique and strange, but it's I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and it was really neat to. I think that Grimy and I had like kind of drank beers most of the morning. I think I had a bottle of whiskey or something like that, and we weren't drinking very much of it. Like, we certainly weren't smashed or anything like that, but we got out on trail probably around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We only needed to go 10 miles to Agua Dulce, and there's this Mexican restaurant that I think they're open till like 9 o'clock, and they let you sleep on their doorstep on the cement, right? I mean, this is, backpacking is some pretty low end living, and it's maybe some of the best quality living I've ever had in my life. So it's really interesting, because what are you going to do? You're going to sleep on the doorstep on the cement sidewalk of a Mexican restaurant in the desert somewhere, and it was great. It was completely great, and so we'll get there in a minute. But this is Vasquez Rocks, and it just took me forever to get to Agua Dulce, because I just took so many pictures, and I'm not going to torture you with like tons of them. But here's another one, and another one. Great. Okay, so now I've gotten to the bar, and I come walking in, and Grimy had gotten lost, and so he had only been there for like 20 or 30 minutes. He walks faster than me, and I think he left a little bit before me, but he got lost and whatever. So he's sitting at the bar, and so we're yelling at each other in the bar, and immediately I order myself a beer, which is that fishbowl there. That's actually really big. That is probably 24 ounces for sure of whatever good beer they had on tap. The restaurant was spectacular. And he ordered me a shot, and like I had said earlier, he had just bailed out of a job that he was making piles of money, so he was like buying really expensive tequila, and it was super good. And let me see what this next picture is. Yeah, okay, that's him right there. The next day, I think we were a little bit hungover, but back to this. So that night, the bartender, after he had ordered a number of shots and stuff, and then the bartender just started pouring us shots, and it was such a great thing to be out on trail, and being in practice for 25 years, and having really dial down my amount of partying that I did and everything, to go to chiropractic college and then to be a professional. It was so incredibly wonderful to just let the shadow side of me come out a lot more on this trip. And it's just like I'm walking so much every day, I'm getting so fit, and it's just time to enjoy booze. And it was shocking to me of how like fantastic the experience of just being out and drinking whenever you can was. I really I really embraced it, and I really enjoyed it. And and so anyway, that night it was myself, Grimy, and um, who was it out on the cement with us? I can't remember. Great fucking guy. 22, 23-year-old dude from Southern California. Fast hiker, strong dude. Great head on his shoulders. Just wonderful, wonderful dude. I hope I have some pictures of him later. But anyway, that was, and it was a night where we had mice running all on top of us all night long as we're sleeping on the cement, whatever. And so here's the next day. We had just finished breakfast, and then we were all kind of doing a little bit of a resupply to kind of truck off and go handle the rest of the desert before we get to the high Sierras. And I'm really glad that I snapped this photo of Grimy, because I only have 2 or 3 photos of him, because he got up ahead of me by a day or two, and I just never caught him because I spent some time at home, and he, solid young dude, and but we had a good time together, and so anyway, I'm really glad that I grabbed this photo in Agua Dulce of Grammy, and so as you can tell, this is like Union Station. So right after I took that last photo, I walked like another 2 miles of road and came to some hiker hostel thing. It's just I don't know the name of it, but just another one of these wonderful places that they will allow you to ship a resupply. They have resupply stuff there. You can camp, you can wash your clothes. All of these wonderful facilities just out in the desert. And I had bumped into these 2 dudes. I had met them in Agua Dulce for the first time like 2 days before. And I come walking up, and they're like, "Oh, hey man, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Oh, totally good." I've only walked like 2.5 miles. I've got my resupply with me, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go to LA for a number of days because you know there's no hurry to get to the high Sierras, and we're just gonna kill some time because we're moving faster and faster. And like, hey, you want to join us?" And I like, "Well, when are you leaving?" And they're like, "Oh, we're leaving in like 45 minutes." And I thought about it for a second, and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, why not?" You know? And so we found ourselves on a bus, and these 2 guys have all their shit figured out. So this is Hammer Hikes on YouTube and Lil Chap on YouTube. And they're very different. Like, they hung out on the trail. They did the entire trail together, and they're both YouTubers, so they were like after it with the camera all the time and stuff like that. But personalities way they're both really different, and both in great ways, great guys. And so anyway, we end up in LA, and man, it had been a long time since I had been to like the heart of LA, and I'm not going to miss that. So we just hit the town and had a really good time. So that's Lil Chap on and uh, Hammer, who now goes by Hollywood. I think he had such an epically good experience in Hollywood. He bought an "I Love Hollywood" shirt and threw it on. I don't think he'd ever been to LA. I mean, I'd only been there once in my life. Um, But that guy with the long red hair, he went from being Hammer to being known as Hollywood on trail. And I think Hollywood's a better trail name. I think it fits his style a little bit better. And Hollywood's uh, he had a really neat experience out there on the trail where where I think that he decided that he wanted to become a barber, and he was talking with me about it, and I'm like this, I'm inspirational. I get people stoked on living the life that they would love to live, and like, how about you just be you? There's nothing broken about you. How about you live your dream, and how about you start now? Right, I'm kind of that guy. And I got a lot of experience of being really successful with that stuff, and so it kind of works for me, and I'm a little bit infectious and those kinds of things. And homeboy had freaking like shears and like a razor and stuff, and he was like learning to cut people's hair out on trail within another few hundred miles. He was carrying a whole like beginner barber kit, or maybe it was some super advanced barber kit. I freaking don't know. And I kept wanting to get my hair cut by him, but our timing never matched up because whenever we would run into each other, it was inappropriate or whatever the situation is. And but I noticed on Facebook since I got home from trail that he actually went to barber college. I mean, like he got on this like right away after he finished the trail. He went straight to barber college, got himself his barber thing. He's set up his shop, and his name is Jake Wise, and I think he's in Pennsylvania, and I think his shop is called Wise Barber, something along those lines. So look him up, and yeah, whatever. Stupid. He's great. And so anyway, we were down in LA, and it was funny because they did all this work to find this like really cost effective hotel, not a cheap hotel in LA because nobody wants to get shot, but we're like right in the heart of LA. And they found a room that was like $180 a night. And it had a king size bed and everything. And so we're like, yeah, yeah, we'll just split that for like 3 nights. And we understood why once we walked in. It was literally 7.5 feet wide by I think 14 feet long. I think those are the numbers. The king size bed barely fit in there. It was a super cool hotel, but three dudes in that room. It was so small, but we made the best of it. Like none of us cared. And so anyway, we went to the next night. We went out to watch Shane Gillis, a comedian at the Staples Center, and we were buying. I think the beers were $20. I think I bought a single 19-ounce IPA by Lagunitas for $20 or $22, and it wasn't any better than when I buy them for $4. So, but the show was great. We had a great time, and we hit the Hollywood Boulevard. What did we do? We just did the super touristy stuff, but because we could walk so many miles, like we could just walk and walk and walk and walk. So we enjoyed the whole Hollywood Boulevard thing for a while, and I grew up kind of in some hardcore scenes in San Francisco, and so I have a real special place internally for uh, the underground and for city life. So I just had an absolutely wonderful time, and got to go to Amoeba. I used to shop at Amoeba in San Francisco all the time, and so it was really great to see that Amoeba place. And yeah, so we hit the Sunset Strip, and got to get some photos, but then we hit a bar And this is out on the Sunset Strip after we had been into Berkeley for Berkeley, Beverly Hills. Very different, right? And so then we hit up this little bar, and it was really sweet. And then we found ourselves out on Santa Monica Boulevard. Um, and that was really great. So we got there. I took this photograph probably 5 minutes after the Uber dropped us off. We did all of Hollywood Boulevard. We walked the entire thing of where all the stars are and all that kind of stuff. Saw the Sunset Strip, walked through um, uh, Beverly Hills a little bit, and then came out to Santa Monica Pier all in one day. And so these are some photos of that evening. And this is Hollywood's first time in the Pacific Ocean. Lil Chap had been to the Pacific before, and so I love these. I love these photos. You know, great, good times. And then the next evening, I got to hang out with my niece Kaylee and her fiance Brady for the evening, and because they live like one little suburban LA thing over from where I was staying, and so it was a really easy hangout. And they're getting married here in the next in the middle of August of 2025. Got myself back out on trail, and I came across this. There was some ranch that I could see way off in the distance, and this train of horses or mules or a combination, came walking up, and it's just so incredibly picturesque. This is the valley that the ranch was in. It was hundreds of acres. Let's say it was a 400-acre ranch in a valley. It was over the top beautiful. And so here I am just working my way from Agua Dulce after my LA trip. I'm just working my way north up to Kennedy Meadows South, KMS. Um, it's at mile 700. It's effectively the start of the Sierra section. Um, and so Kennedy Meadows is this thing that everybody's like really looking forward to. So that's a picture of what my favorite trail environment. You know, um, I really love it when it's 18 inches wide, everything is green, and it's nearly dead flat, right? Like I just really like that where you just you don't have to think, you don't have to pay attention. There's no roots, there's no rocks. It's not steep up or down, and you just stroll along in God's painting. It's really special. This is just some miner's lettuce that I was snacking on for lunch or whatever it happens to be. This is a coulter pine. That thing is about a foot tall and about 8 or 9 inches wide. And I set it up and took a picture of it because I thought it would look good, and it does. Here I am at mile 500. It had been a week and a half or whatever, and I'm like getting water out of some cistern, and Chap in Hollywood showed up that night, that afternoon. So, what you see here is the final descent down into the Mojave section. The Mojave section is a notoriously hot section. It's somewhere between 22 and 30 miles. I don't know how people like really think about it, but it's something like that. It's a big hike. Um, but you're down in on the desert floor. Even though it's at 2,000 feet of elevation, it gets hot. So you basically want to hide from the sun. So you basically do it at night, and it's a big party thing. Um, and so this is the final walk down an old 4 by road down to Hikertown. And so what you can see is in the blue shirt back in there, in the blue shirt, tie dye looking thing, that's Lieutenant that I was talking about earlier. I had spent the whole day talking with Tupac. He's in the foreground here. In the light blue shirt, there's a whole bunch of people that I know in this photo. It cracks me up because I didn't even realize this when I was taking the photo. But this guy here, I don't know who he is. He's sitting there rolling a joint, um, and I noticed that probably, when I was going through my photos after the trip. It cracks me up is like how much dope people were smoking out there. I don't know how they do it, but more power to anybody that is into that. And and then there's a wonderful lady from I believe she was from Switzerland. She's in that yellow and green shirt. She is just another one of these just like epically strong young women that was just like really bold. Definitely made eye contact when you communicate with her, and just solid all around great human being. I don't remember her name either, but just I want to, yeah, whatever. A lot of wonderful people out there. Yep, got that little bunny. Okay, so this is where we're starting the aqueduct section, the Mojave section. The sun was just going down when I took this on. I had done maybe 10 miles, 15 miles that morning, and then I hung out at Hikertown all day and I took a shower, cleaned my clothes, those kinds of things. And and then set off around 7 in the evening to go crush the desert section, the Mojave section. So this is the LA Aqueduct in a tube. So you get to walk on that. You get to walk on top of that for as long as you want. You could walk miles on top of that thing. It's really neat, but there's a fire road right next to it, so you might as well walk on the fire road because then you don't have to pay attention. This is a brother and sister group that I caught up to, or they caught me, one or the other, and they were up on top of this thing, just kind of checking some stuff out. Sweet, sweet brother sister combo there. Um, yeah, so this is just going into the evening, and it is great that pictures don't do justice, but I wish pictures did justice so that I could share them with you. So on the bottom right hand side of the photograph there, that's the LA Aqueduct. Also, it's just running underground all through there. You just walk on top of it. It's dead flat for miles, like so many miles. This is probably the next day. That night, I walked until about 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I think I did 17 miles that night, and the wind was just got really bad, and I was tired, and I lay down and whatever. And there's all these kangaroo rats. They got, if you know what a kangaroo rat is, they got like a tuft on the end of their tail, and they're just adorable. In 2020, Kai and Teo and I we walked until about 4 o'clock in the morning. That morning, blasting music going through the desert, and Teo took it upon himself to catch one of those things. And you just get involved in some really hillbilly shit when you're out doing that kind of stuff. But um, he figured out that it's like, okay, well, if you shine a flashlight in their eyes, that kind of stuns them, and then you can throw a jacket over the top of them, and then you can catch them. So Teo figured out how to catch these kangaroo rats. Well, they clearly told stories for the next few years. And so then I was out there, and they're like, we're going to get back at this group. These people are awful. They were trapping our buddies years ago. And stories had like been, percolating along through their community for probably generations now. And so they got back at me. I bedded down, hid under a bush somewhere, and just tried to go to sleep. And they ate um, the straps on my hiking poles. They nibbled them to nothing. And so that was a pretty funny thing when I woke up in the morning. I probably started walking at 6 in the morning or whatever, noticed that they had just chowed down on my, because they're after the salt, right? So they're starving for salt. And so they chowed down on my straps of my poles. And I didn't have straps on my poles until, I don't know, Oregon or something like that, by the time Lecky was able to get me some replacement straps. Anyway, these little horny toads, whatever lizard they are really docile. They're very easy to catch. They're really sweet, if something like that can be said. But in 2020, I saw hundreds of them, and on my PCT this time, I only saw like maybe 50 of them. This is some trail registry somewhere. I don't know where it is, but there's a lot of these things where they're trying to keep track of the hikers and where they are, and and they're really neat because you open them up and it's like, oh, Hamburglar's already been through here, and this person and this person and this person. Oh, okay, Hammer and Little Chap, or they have already come through. Okay, well, Grimy. Okay, Grimy's like 2 days ahead of me and stuff, and so you can kind of see where you are, and it's like, okay, well, those people are up there a little bit, and so it's kind of neat, so that you can, because you sign in with your trail name and the date. And I wish it was tradition to put a time in, you know, um, you know, May 15th at 12:04 or whatever it happens to be, because we all know what time it is because we all have mobile phones with us. But then it's like, okay, well, were they there in the morning? Were they in the afternoon? There's a bunch of guesswork and stuff. But those trail registries are great, and people leave all kinds of gifts inside of those trail registries. Like, you can pull out Tootsie Rolls out of those things. People leave joints inside of them. People leave um, tangerines and grapes and whatever. So there's all kinds of like snacks or whatever sometimes in them. So the trail registries were so, kind of stupid, but they were great. That's definitely my favorite photograph of me on the trip. That's definitely my favorite one. That's before I lost my flashlight. That silver thing in my pocket there, that's my flashlight. I lost my flashlight. That was my favorite lizard on the trip. Those lizards, I don't know the name of them or nothing like that, but they're really long, they're really fast, they're big, and they've got all these spots on them. They're, you would not want to be a cricket with that thing after you. Oh, the things people do on the PCT they're so incredibly special. I believe that this is at mile 549, and you're in the middle of nowhere. I had been out for days. Um, Water is very sparse and whatever, and then you just come walking along the trail, and then there's sunshade, there's multiple boxes full of fruit and donuts and other snacks. There's chairs to sit on, there's a table to put shit on, and there's just copious amounts of water to fill up. I mean, the effort that people go through to go out into the middle of the desert and then like keep something like this up and running, that is just, and there's like a donation box, but they're not doing it for the donations. They're doing it because they care. And this is one of the things that's like so beautiful about humanity, is that people find these niches of how to give, and it feeds our soul to give and serve in some way. And it doesn't matter how, it doesn't seem to matter how you do it. I don't think the angels judge like how you serve. If you have children and you love your children, you're taking care of your children, you plant a garden, you're a surgeon. There's no hierarchy with that stuff. I don't think that that matters. You tend an orchard, whatever it is. How are you contributing? How are you making a difference to the world? And so when you see an expression of generosity, I was probably, I don't know, 10 miles, 16 miles into my day when I stepped across this. I come into this, and I had been there 4 years earlier, so I kind of knew that it exists, right? I didn't know if it still exists or not, or if it's going to have any supplies. The supplies in 2024 were way better than they were in 2020. But and then you look at it and it's like it's pretty dilapidated, really, right? Rusted out chairs and stuff, but a rusted out chair beats a rock every day of the week, right? you know and so anyway, super grateful. Real Mile 549, there we go. So thanks to the trail angels. This is another one of those patches of just thousands of those little purple and white flowers. They're just my favorite. Look at that. Look how insane that is. That went on for hundreds and hundreds of yards. Oh my gosh, this is right where I meet Tarzan. Yeah, I'm going to meet Tarzan here in the next very short amount of time. Tarzan's a New Zealander, great guy. He's a EMT paramedic guy, and we spent a lot of time together. Yeah, this is where we first started seeing Joshua trees. See, I take pictures of like my favorite sections of trail, right, where they're like dead flat, no roots and rocks and green, and I like that stuff. 600 miles, 600, and so I got 100 miles to go to get myself to Kennedy Meadows South, where at Kennedy Meadows South I'm meeting my two boys, Kai and Teo. They're going to do the High Sierras with me. They're bringing their buddy Toshi. Toshi is never been backpacking before, and he's getting ready to come out on a trip and step right into hardcore wilderness of the likes he had never experienced in his life. Kai and Teo definitely know what they're doing, and they did a great job of outfitting this kid for their trip for the trip into the High Sierras. So I got 100 miles to go from here. I don't know how many pictures of these flowers I took. This is one of these fantastic water supply places where you're just filling up your water. It's just some old pipe shoved into a spring somewhere, and the water that's coming out is crystal clear and fantastic. Everybody filters their, you know, um, I got a little bit of flack because I didn't do a lot of filtering of my water. I filtered my water out of cisterns. I would have filtered this water for sure. Um, but I've spent so much time in the outdoors and I've drank so much water from the outdoors kayaking that it's just like, the water's fine. You can tell when it's not fine. And so, yeah, just beautiful. You know, that's millions of wildflowers. That's millions of wildflowers that you're looking at there. In 2020, we probably saw on average, you know, 2 or 3 rattlesnakes a day. And in 2024, I probably saw one every other day. So I didn't really see very many of them. I probably saw 40 rattlesnakes on the entire trip from Mexico to Canada. I saw a fair number of them in Washington, which really surprised me. Oregon too. But the population of rattlesnakes, from my experience, definitely drop down. Um, yeah, so just beautiful, beautiful California desert. You would never want to make the mistake of thinking that you're stepping into a domain that is always hot and always dry. People experience a lot of very low temperatures and a lot of precipitation down in the California desert. It's not what we make up in our heads about what a desert's like, for sure. And it does get very hot, and it's a long way between water sources sometimes. So it's a really serious section. It's a great section of trail. Um, this is probably I don't know what mile it is, somewhere between 600 and 700. This is the kind of stuff that people do out there. Each of those are 5-gallon water jugs. You've got plastic boxes, waterproof plastic boxes full of power chargers. There's like 30 or 40 power chargers in each of those cases. And there's 2 cases full of them, and they were all fully charged. And then there's a whole box of books, there's boxes of first aid. It's like, and this is so in the middle of nowhere. Like, you've been walking through nowhere 4 days, and then you come across something like this. The effort that it would take to come the dozens of miles out some dusty dirt road to where that dusty dirt road crosses the PCT and set shit like this up. This is of epic effort, So kudos to the trail angels. You guys make our lives possible. Next morning, real early, we had our last really big climb before Kennedy Meadows South, and this was where I realized that it didn't matter how steep it got, that I just couldn't make my body tired. I was just, you know, I think this is a 3 or 4 thousand foot climb, and I had it done in just a few hours. And these are some of these shocking experiences, God, that I hope for everybody, that you know you're out doing something in your life, and it's just like it's a lot of physical effort, man. You off the couch go and do this walk with, I probably had 15 pounds on my back, so people travel light out here, but 15 pounds is 15 pounds. And uh, you're just cruising along, and you just don't get tired, and it's just uphill, and you just don't, it doesn't matter, right? It's an incredible experience. It's one of my deepest hopes for everybody that I take care of professionally, is that they feel themselves at peak of fitness. That is it's insane. It's an incredible experience. This is up towards the top. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm on the back side of it, and I came across this cabin. Kai and Teo and I stayed here in 2020. Now, we didn't stay inside it because it was so dilapidated and rat infested. We we camped about 50 yards away from this little shack. This is a water supply. There's a creek just to the downhill side of this shack. You're of course welcome to go inside the shack, and there's scrappy resupply stuff, or just scraps that people have left. There was nothing when I was there of any value. But I still set up and ate lunch in there. But we had stayed there in 2020, and we had a really nice afternoon sitting on the porch there. And then a storm came in, and we had 50-mile-an-hour winds and got 2 or 3 inches of snow. So we got pounded. That was the day that I learned that Z-Packs tents these flimsy, lightweight things are bomber. You set them up correctly, they can take what nature dishes out. They're legit. So anyway, I just had lunch there and then took off. I think this is my first view of the High Sierras. Another one of these where you're like side hilling for hours, and just the wildflowers. They'll go on for miles. They'll just go on for miles, and that's a beautiful photograph. That's a beautiful photograph, and that photograph doesn't do justice at all. Okay, this is a picture that my wife must have taken because it is of my new backpack. And it's the same backpack, Z-Packs. I had like the Arc Haul 55, and this is like the Arc Haul 60. It's the equivalent, but just 4 years newer. My pack, yeah, it's still solid. It's still good, but I didn't trust it to go into the High Sierra, so I bought myself another pack. And that looks like a bunch of resupply items down below that pack. And so it was the job for Kai and Teo to bring my new pack and a whole resupply and meet me in Kennedy Meadows. And so then, so that picture that we just looked at of my backpack, that would have been taken a few days before I got to Kennedy Meadows, but that was just my wife communicating to me that it had arrived, and there's a little bit of concern now. This spiky flower thing, this is the day that I meet Sparkles. Sparkles. I've always screwed up her name. Young French woman. And I mean, like a lot of these young men and women, she was no different. Just, I mean, obviously unique, but like just lovely, out on the adventure of a lifetime. And we had come across these spikes of flowers. Now, that's coming up and out of what looks to be like an agave looking kind of plant. But those flower spikes are literally like 5 or 6 feet tall and like 3 feet wide. They were spectacular, and they were on trail for about 200 yards of the California desert. About 200 yards had these things. So, real special microclimate that allowed these things to live. And so I got pictures of them. I mean, I saw hundreds of them, but it only lasted for like 10 minutes. See, I'm always looking so serious. Okay, so this is them making bacon at home, getting ready to ship the boys off with their buddy and all the resupply to go up into the High Sierras. This is just cooked bacon that is then vacuum packed. It's an incredible, it's a fantastic breakfast. So this is the boys organizing everything in our office. You can see our entrainment tables, our chiropractic tables in our entrainment room, and they've got their stuff strewn all over the place. They're getting themselves organized for some activities. You can see some trekking poles and some ice axes and some micro spikes and extra first aid stuff. And look at that. They've even got a scale sitting there on just right above my head. There's a scale there. They're weighing their stuff, and they're not going to take anything that they don't need. They're making sure that their pads inflate and stuff like that. These are good stuff. That's Teo, my youngest, and Toshi. Toshi is on the right-hand side, and his backpack clearly has not been fit to him yet. Those straps need to be tightened down quite a bit, those load lifters, but whatever. Okay, that's my oldest son, Kai. Yeah. So that's Kai in our front yard. he's looking ready to go. This is all three of them. I think they've got the car and everything all packed up. They're out in our parking lot. This is back to me, and I'm taking pictures of some sort of aster. I don't know what variation of aster that is, but by the millions and beautiful. Okay, so I am still not to Kennedy Meadows. I'm still not to Kennedy Meadows South yet. But this is the first ridge that I saw um, in um, at the doorstep to the High Sierras, because that rock outcropping, that looks like High Sierras to me. Here's mile 700 and this lady's foot here. We got together probably the day before or something like that. Another one of these strong, young, fantastic people out on trail. We had a really good time together, chatting about things. And uh, I don't have I have the tendency to actually have deep conversations with people. And one of my mentors said that if you can make a difference, you probably should. And you know, I buy into that stuff. I would rather risk offending somebody. I would rather risk freaking somebody out, making sure that they don't want to be around me anymore, but giving it an opportunity to like make a huge difference in their life. And so I spent the night before with Sparkles and this young lady. I can't remember her name. We were sitting next to a creek, and it takes people a little bit. And the young women that are solo out on trail, they should be wary of frickin' dudes and stuff. But it takes them, a day or three, whatever, to totally get it that I'm super harmless and I'm just, you know, um, an insightful, philosophically deep person that's interested in having real conversations. And so I ended up in some amazing conversations. And I remember chatting with this lady, and she, because in this time, uh, she's some Euro. I don't remember what country she was from, maybe Denmark or whatever. And all the women like have the tendency to just be kind of like wondering where the solid, strong young men are. And a lot of the young men at this age, they're kind of um, not showing up as masculine as they certainly could because of just the way culture is. And the conversations with these young women, it always turned into, yes, I want a knight in shining armor. Yes, I want a strong man. Yes, that's what I want, but I don't understand why. It's just like they just don't exist anymore. And so we ended up in these really beautiful conversations. And so that's what I really remember about this lady. I've got a photograph of her here, and a number of them in the next few slides as we go these last couple miles into Grumpy Bears, which is a main resupply spot at Kennedy Meadows South, where I'm going to be waiting for Kai and Teo and Toshi to show up. So this is her at the Kennedy Meadows sign. We're about a mile walk on a asphalt road into Grumpy Bears. This is me at the same sign. This is her walking into, this is the general store. So this is not Grumpy Bears. This is the general store in Kennedy Meadows. I can't remember the name of it right now. I think it's just called the general store, whatever. But they're basically the same thing. They've got fantastic food and a resupply, and you can buy stuff and whatever. And so they're both great, and everybody should go to both places. And There are shuttles that go back and forth. They're only like 3 miles apart. The two businesses feud and whatever, but like just don't get involved with that. Like it doesn't matter. So this is Toshi and Teo, and they are dropping off Toshi's car in Mammoth. They're on their way to come and meet me, but the plan was for Kai, Toshi, Teo, and myself to walk from Kennedy Meadows South a couple 100 miles to Mammoth. And then they would hop in Toshi's car, drive back to Kennedy Meadows, pick up Kai's car, that Volvo, and then they would all go home, and I would go off on my merry way. But they would get to do the High Sierras with me. Okay, so this is us at Grumpy Bears. Wonderful. This is the other place. They're the same thing, basically. This is that same gal that I was hiking with. I really wish I could remember her name, but she's got the right sized beer in her hand, and so did everybody else. These are a couple of fellow hikers at Grumpy Bears eating hamburgers. That's why I took the photograph, was because of the hamburgers there and the general enjoy. It's just a wonderful, wonderful party scene, and really, really good times. My dear friends, um, Melissa and John Brozek sent me a couple $100 bottle of whiskey. They sent that with the kids. So I opened it up. This is probably, I woke up at like 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. And well, I was just going to watch the sunrise, So we're camping at Grumpy Bears. And so I've got my two boys, their friend Toshi, and we're getting ready to go into the high Sierras. And you talk about an epic trip. And so I had this, and what are you going to do with that? There's nothing to do with that, right? Except for drink it. And so this is the boys preparing for their hike that day. And I had gotten up, an hour and a half before I took this photograph and started sipping on that whiskey. And I mean, what else should I be doing, right? Like, how great is this little pile of little rats? I'm not going to wake them up. They had a long night of driving and this and that and stuff. So this is me saying goodbye to my Topo Mountain Racer 3s, my first pair. This is us back over at the general store, getting ready to take off. This is after us spending all day putting all of our gear together and all that kind of stuff for our trip. We spent the whole day doing that. We didn't hike that day. And so this is Toshi out on the deck, and we had some more beers and stuff. And this is Teo and Toshi arm wrestling, and they brought oranges to share with people, and it was just generally a good thing. And so this is us getting ready to step off into the wilds of the High Sierras. This is this is the like sign-in box right at the High Sierras. And so I should call it good for today, because I should do the High Sierras all in one go, because that is going to be epically good. So if anybody is on here or whatever, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you. I will do the next one on Tuesday, starting at 9:30 in the morning, Tuesday, California time.